In 2009, at the World Meeting of Families, Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, Cardinal Bertone said this about the importance of the laity. He said, "Without a doubt, the time is ripe for the laity to fully assume its proper vocation in the church and in society." And when you were introducing me before Bishop Sherlock, I realized, oh no, it wasn't, anyhow. There was mention that how laity is being formed here at the seminary, which is fantastic, because we do need lay ministers, but we also need lay people who do apostolate in the midst of the world. And so whatever formation they get here is, I'm sure, very helpful to them. So, because we know that it is by immersing themselves in the world that lay people fulfill their proper vocation to which God has called them since their baptism. And this vocation is to collaborate with Him in building a world that is more just and more human. So our skills and convictions should be founded on a well-formed conscience. Whether we're business people or politicians, educators in schools or at home, academics, journalists, lawyers, nurses, doctors, name it. Whether you're a taxi driver, a local cleaning, you run a local dry cleaning service, whether you're a farmer, you work in a factory, wherever you work, each of us have unique abilities that give us an important role to play. In solidarity with our fellow citizens and guided by the spirit of the gospel, we can affect, and we can all affect, current economic, social, educational, legislative, administrative, or cultural developments in our own little way, even if it's just by talking to our enemies or by writing a letter to the media or blogging. I just mentioned a few seconds ago the importance of a well-formed conscience. And I think we realize that parents and educators in general have the most important task of forming consciences of the upcoming generations. This constant challenge is to try to develop in each child a conscience that is truly free, and that will be truly free, and that will be able to reject what is evil and choose what is good. Indeed, this is from the instruction on Christian freedom and liberation from the Congregation on the Doctrine of the Faith, that says freedom is not the liberty to do anything whatsoever. It is the freedom to do good. And in this alone, happiness is to be found. The good is thus the goal of freedom. In consequence, man becomes free to the extent that he comes to a knowledge of the truth, and to the extent that this truth, and not any other forces, guides his will. End of quote. So, among all the human and Christian virtues learned in family and society, certain virtues in particular prepare the youth of today to resist attacks on their freedom of conscience, and that's becoming a major problem in Canada. So, resist attacks on their freedom of conscience any encounter sooner or later. And these virtues, among these virtues, are strength of character, courage, patience, prudence, and perseverance. The continent of America, said John Paul II in the church, in the apostolic exhortation, The Church in America. The continent of America needs lay Christians able to assume roles of leadership in society. It is urgent to train men and women who, in keeping with their vocation, can influence public life and direct it to the common good. some of us may sooner or later become aware of a more specific call to serve the common good as in the political life by running for office. Those who follow this call really deserve our admiration, our respect, and our support and our prayers. Their professional undertaking requires great sacrifices for them and for their families. Aristotle considered the difficult art of politics to be the most noble calling alongside philosophy. Interesting. So whoever wishes to serve in the political arena must be aware that it would constitute a great injustice to favor individual rights and freedoms that are in opposition to the common good. Unfortunately, this happens sometimes. Elected officials must seek to pursue the common good of all citizens and strive above all to defend life, the first of fundamental rights. Even so, I'm sure you've heard some politicians, Catholic politicians, who would say that they are personally opposed to certain practices, abortion, euthanasia, assisted suicide, reproductive technologies. Oh, personally, I'm opposed to that, but I must respect the views of my constituents when voting on proposed legislation. This is a sign of double standard, and it reveals a kind of spiritual schizophrenia, I would call it, a divorce between one's faith and the many choices and decisions that are encountered in everyday life. We are all called to unity of life, which means living coherent lives, refusing to leave our beliefs at the door of our workplace or wherever we work, and it can be in Parliament, it can be anywhere, but refusing, we need to refuse to leave our beliefs at the door and go do a job and put our believer's hat back on when we walk out. No, unity of life is coherence. As you know, we live in a pluralist society. For most of us, it's obvious that a respectful conflict of ideas, debate, is for everyone's benefit. We can all benefit from hearing others' ideas and all that. It's okay. However, today, there are some people in Canadian society who advocate for a false pluralism that would remove from the public square all opinions that are different from theirs. As a matter of fact, we are now confronted with a conspiracy of silence in some cases. As you know, lobby groups opposed to Christianity are very active in society. Who among us hasn't heard the phrase separation of church and state used by those who want to exclude from the public square any religious reference? They want Christians to stay in their living rooms or in their basements or in their churches. They proclaim that religion is a private matter and that it has nothing to do with the public square. This aggressive secularism threatens our freedoms of religion, conscience, education, expression. As Cardinal Martino, president then, I don't know if he still is, of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, put it a few years ago, the voices of the Holy Father and the Catholic Church are hardly listened to, especially in wealthy and healthy countries. They are often submerged in an uproar orchestrated by powerful cultural, economic, and political lobbies, motivated primarily by an anti-Christian bias. These often rich and mostly all the time arrogant lobbies are really the new holy inquisitions. And the accused are especially the church and Christians. Lately I read this article, Zenit was it? Anyhow, that in Europe there was this report written by, I think it was for a government, I'm not sure I should say, but people are now talking about Christianophobia, Christianophobia, how would you say that? Phobia against Christians, okay? So, the accused are especially the church and Christians, okay? Against which any method is permissible if it serves to silence their voice through intimidation, public scorn, cultural discrimination, marginalization. This is a quote from Cardinal Willett, who is now, as you know, the prefect of the Congregation of Bishops in Rome. Pope Benedict, in a speech to the United Nations on April 18, 2002, shared this opinion also. He said, "It is inconceivable, then, that believers should have to suppress a part of themselves, their faith, in order to be active citizens. It should never be necessary to deny God in order to enjoy one's rights. The rights associated with religion are all the more in need of protection if they are considered to clash with a prevailing secular ideology or with majority religious positions of an exclusive nature." But faced with this secular fundamentalism, warns Cardinal Martino, the Church will continue to proclaim the gospel of salvation, with the strength that comes from the Lord. And the Church will keep preaching it to men and women of our times. And the Church is, of course, the Pope, bishops, priests, deacons. The Church is everybody, all the members of the Church, all baptized. We are the Church, in unity with our bishops and the Pope and all that. Okay? And we are all called to proclaim the truth where we live, in all our milieu. I remember reading an interview on Zenit a couple of years ago. It was in 2008, an interview